You ever wonder what a really strong, active faith actually looks like in practice? Well, today we're going to take a trip back in time to an ancient city called Berea. We're going to uncover this incredible model for how to engage with scripture and teaching, and believe me, it's just as powerful today as it was 2,000 years ago. Okay, let's get into it. But first, let's kick things off with a pretty tough question, one that kind of gets to the heart of the matter for a lot of churches today. The whole Protestant Reformation was built on this big idea of sola scriptura, scripture alone. But is that the reality we're actually living in?
And this slide really lays out the tension, right? On one side, you have the ideal. Everything we believe, everything we do, it's all grounded in the Bible. But the source material for this explainer points to a different reality, something it cleverly calls sola programma, where sometimes, the programs, the organization, even the entertainment factor, they can start to take over. So, Section 1, only scripture versus reality. Let's really dig into this gap between that foundational ideal and what church life can sometimes feel like today. Now get this. Here's a pretty startling observation from the source material. It suggests that some church leaders might actually be worried that if their congregations know the Bible too well, it makes ministry harder. That's a wild thought, right? And it really sets the stage for why this Berean model we're about to look at is so important. All right, Section 2, a journey to Berea. So to find this better way, we've got to jump in our time machine and go back to the moment the Apostle Paul showed up in this small but pretty amazing city. You have to understand, Paul's journey to get here was intense. He'd just been in a city called Thessalonica for 3 weeks, and his message was met with riots and serious hostility. I mean, he and his partner Silas literally had to be snuck out of town in the middle of the night just to stay safe. So they get to Berea, probably bracing for more of the same. But what they find there is a total game changer. Okay, Section 3, the noble Berean way. Let's break down exactly what it was about the people in this city that made them so different, so special. So the Bible calls the Bereans more noble than the people in Thessalonica, but this has nothing to do with money or being high class. The original Greek word is all about character. It means being noble-minded, open, ready to listen. They had this incredible intellectual and spiritual posture that just set them apart from the start. So what did this nobility actually look like? It was a really simple 2-step process. First, eager reception. They leaned in. They listened with genuine curiosity. But, and this is the key, the second step was daily, serious examination of the scriptures to see if what Paul was saying was actually true. And that word examine is way more intense than it sounds. We're not talking about a casual read-through. The original Greek term is actually a legal one. It's the kind of word you'd use for a formal investigation, like a judge in a courtroom or a lawyer cross-examining a witness. It shows just how seriously they took their responsibility to verify the truth. Which leads us to Section 4, examine, don't just accept. Because this whole idea of intense examination brings up a really important question, doesn't it? Can you really question something and truly believe it at the same time? It's a totally fair question. Does all this daily fact-checking and digging around just undermine faith? Is it basically a fancy word for doubt when you should just be accepting what you hear? Well, the famous theologian John Calvin had a fantastic answer to that. He argued that a real, certain faith has absolutely nothing to fear from being examined. In fact, he said that this exact process, digging into the scriptures for yourself, is what helps your faith grow and become solid. It doesn't weaken it, it makes it rock solid. And he took it a step further. He contrasted this with any system that demands you just accept things blindly. And he asks this brilliant question. If the Apostle Paul himself allowed his teaching to be examined by the Bereans, what leader on earth today should be considered above that same scrutiny? It's just a powerful argument for everyone's right to study for themselves. So, Section 5, a challenge for today. Let's bring this ancient model right into the 21st century. How does the Berean way push back on that sola programma idea we talked about at the beginning? Well, first, just look at the results. Did all this critical thinking kill the church in Berea? Not a chance. The Bible is clear. Many of them believed. The ministry thrived. The church grew. And it grew with active, engaged people, not just passive listeners in a crowd. And this model really forces us to look in the mirror at our own priorities today. Are we measuring success by how many people show up or by their spiritual depth? Do we find ourselves drawn more to an entertaining speaker than a solid Bible teacher? Do we value management skills over deep scriptural knowledge? These are the kinds of hard questions the Berean attitude makes us ask. Which really brings it all down to this idea of focus. Is the goal a one-to-one relationship where every single person is engaging directly with God through Scripture? Or does it accidentally become a 1-to-50 relationship where a crowd becomes dependent on one person at the front? The Berean way is all about that one-to-one, empowering every single person.
At the end of the day, it all comes back to this one verse. The Berean attitude is a timeless challenge for all of us, to be open, to be eager to learn, but to always, always check it against the source. It's a call for a faith that is active, thoughtful, and deeply personal. And I guess the question it leaves us with is, are we willing to do the work?